now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're listening, whenever you're watching. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out his website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. Check it out. Go visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the Title Bout Championship computer game banner. Download yourself a copy today. It's a great game. It's a simulation game. Same game that Alex Perpali uses in our Blast from the Past segment. So check that out. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. Coming up a little bit later, we'll have my man Dax Kahn join us, and hopefully Alex Perpali as well. My partner in crime, Sal Rocky Santa Cola, man, will be joining me in a few minutes here. Today we're going to talk about, of course, first and foremost, our post-fight thoughts from the Daniel Jacobs middleweight title fight against Sergiy Derevyanchenko last night on HBO. HBO will be giving us one more broadcast to close out their boxing. I just want to make a point. I found it kind of funny that they're advertising a face-off with Tiger in a golf matchup. I was just saying to myself, oh, geez, they're leaving boxing. Now they're going to get into golf? It's kind of different. But anyway, let's get to Daniel Jacobs' win last night. He won the fight the way the judges scored it, 115-112, twice for Danny Jacobs. I don't have a problem with that score. I do agree with that score. I disagreed with my man Harold Lederman's one-sided, lopsided score. The 114-113 scorecard for Derevyanchenko was kind of strange to me. I thought that it was a little out of whack. But hey, it depends how you. And then they said, "Let there be video." We'll get to that in a second. But anyway, okay, I'll let you in on a little secret. Sal, my man, my technically challenged partner in crime, Sal Rocky Santa Cola, has just made an appearance on a camera. So let's switch over to him, because the reason I mention this is because he was kicking and screaming and crying like a little child there about 5 minutes ago. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Billy C. I figured it out.
Oh, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. That's good, my man. That's good. Well, listen. Before we get to it here, I just want to give my quick thoughts on the fight and then get yours, of course. I was saying about the scores. I'm okay with the scores. I was a little perplexed with the one judge, and it happened to have been Julie Lederman. Julie Lederman scored the fight 114-113 for Derevyanchenko. I could see it if you were looking for the aggressor, and in the latter rounds, I thought that Derevyanchenko was coming on. Danny Jacobs, I couldn't put my finger on it. I think Andre Rozier, his trainer, is got to be the worst trainer in boxing. He really is. And I don't know if Daniel Jacobs doesn't fight the way he could. And I'll give you an example. Daniel Jacobs had the height and the reach, and he was boxing beautifully. But he seemed to not want to engage, which, listen, we don't need to have a Rocky Senecola style fight every single time, but he had this guy. He was hitting him at will with his reach. Setting him up with a jab. He worked the body, and he seemingly took his foot off the gas, which I thought was a mistake. And that's what got Sergiy Derevyanchenko back into the fight. My thoughts were that he was kind of getting tired, but then he would come on and prove me wrong. So I couldn't figure it out. Do you think he was giving him too much respect? I mean, what was your thoughts on Danny's performance, Sal?
I thought he did exactly what he had to do to win in a sense. And, my score was quite different from Harold Letterman, who I'm usually on the same page 99 out of 100 times. I wasn't quite the score as his daughter, but I did have it as far as maybe I think I scored at 116 to 112. And, it was definitely Daniel Jacobs was the winner. And I clearly saw that he had his moments. But, Sergiy Derevyanchenko definitely tried to capitalize on a few moments that he had. And he was the aggressor for the most fight, and most of the fight. And he did come up with some combinations and rights and lefts. And he tried to stick to a body attack, which I thought was working, but he abandoned it after, I guess, frustration. And I think, all in all, Daniel Jacobs' performance, I think they had somewhat of a familiarity between the two. They had supposedly 300 rounds between sparring. So there is a little bit of a mutual respect, a little bit of, hey, I know what I know what I can do with you now, kind of mindset with that. And I got you right where I wanted you. And, I think it was a decent performance by Daniel Jacobs. Not his stellar, not his most illustrious fight, but, it was a great fight. He engaged. They both were exchanging some good, solid shots. But I did expect more from Daniel Jacobs than what we saw.
What I was looking for, and my point is, I agree with you. Danny Jacobs fought a smart fight, but he fought what I would say just enough to win. And that's a dangerous game plan. And that I blame on Rozier. This is why I can't stand him. This is why I think he's such an awful trainer. Daniel Jacobs has some pop. He's clearly got some boxing ability. He can move around the ring fluently. Why not go in for the kill? And as far as the mutual respect point that you made, I agree. But Roy Jones Jr. made a great point during the broadcast when he said, yeah, they fought 300 rounds together in sparring. But in sparring, they had 16-ounce gloves and headgear. And Derevyanchenko was always in a position where he was emulating an opponent that Daniel Jacobs was going to fight. So a lot of times he was fighting a different style. I thought that Derevyanchenko made a mistake by trying to come out and do something different than what he does best, which is just attack his opponent. I also felt that the knockdown in the first round where Daniel Jacobs dropped Derevyanchenko, that it wasn't a solid shot. The commentators, the one thing I can't stand about most commentators today is that they clearly show favoritism towards one fighter. And they were saying, oh, because then when Derevyanchenko rocked Daniel Jacobs a couple rounds later, they were going, well, he just seemed to have hit Danny off his balance. It wasn't as stunning and as hurtful as Daniel Jacobs' knockdown was in the first round. And I'm saying to myself, what knockdown did they see? He was kind of like trying to get out of his way, and he went down. Yeah, he went down. It was a knockdown. He went down. But he wasn't hurt at all. He jumped up and he was ready. He kept saying, I'm good. But I don't know. I don't know what to think of Jacobs' performance, Sal, to be honest with you, because I say to myself, if you fight that cautiously at that next level, which you would think anyone, if he goes after anyone that's at that next level, which should be his very next fight, if he gets stuck doing some mandatory, the guy can't fight the way he fought with Derevyanchenko. And Derevyanchenko displayed that he wasn't hurting Daniel Jacobs that much. He was landing some shots, but he didn't seem to hurt him. I just wonder if they're gun shy with Jacobs because he does seem to get hurt when he gets hit, Sal.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, I did recognize some of the points that you just made. And yeah, it was a knockdown. I saw that, what was not relayed too well by the commentators was, Yeah, Daniel Jacobs placed a really neat uppercut, a right-hand uppercut, and then he came over with the overhand right that caught him on the top of the head. So, yeah, he was off balance. It was a knockdown, but I agree with you. He was not that badly hurt. And it was a not quite a flash knockdown, but the uppercut jarred him, and then the overhand right, like I said, just put him off balance. He tipped, and he went down. And Bill, I've said several times in the past, and not to take away, but sometimes a fighter that we see go up against a Triple G or other opponents lesser than a Triple G or so, or when they have fought Triple G, sometimes they're just not the same afterwards. In other words, maybe they rise to the occasion, maybe they look stellar at that moment, maybe this and that. And I think, there's a blanket statement, and I'm probably going to get some criticism, but sometimes I notice that they don't rise to that occasion again, or maybe a fight at Triple G or somebody else has taken something, a little bit out of them. I don't know.
Well, then that's another thing. They're talking like he almost beat Triple G. What are you talking about? I mean, that fight, yeah, he hung in there. He finished on his feet. That's a victory when you fight Triple G. Triple G is actually, an older fighter now. He's not the same guy that Daniel Jacobs fought. But I'll tell you this: if Daniel Jacobs fought the way he fought against Derevyanchenko last night, if he steps in the ring with one of these fighters at that next level, who when I say next level, I mean guys like Triple G or Canelo or even Billy Joe Saunders or even Demetrius Andrade, if he fights like that against a talented fighter, I'm not taking anything away from Sergiy Derevyanchenko. Derevyanchenko's a one-dimensional fighter. And these other names that I mentioned, that next level, they're multi-level. They have multi-dimension, I should say. And I don't know if Daniel Jacobs can win with a game plan like he had against Derevyanchenko, Sal. That's my point.
Well, I think it's definitely a point to consider, too. And like I said, I was thinking the same thing as I was watching him. Yes, he was being effective against Derevyanchenko. And Derevyanchenko wasn't just a one-dimensional opponent. He was a pretty fiery world-class fighter. But I thought I expected more from Daniel Jacobs. For what I've seen him in the past, I've expected more. And but like I said, a win is a win, and you could have an off night. And guess what? He's going to come back and he'll show, and maybe he'll have a stellar performance next time out. And go ahead.
No. I just we're going to talk more about the Jacobs fight. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What did you want to finish your thought?
No, I finished it.
You were rambling. Oh, okay. I just want to touch.
I was doing fill-in thoughts.
I just want to touch base on some of the other fights that I want to talk about later on the show. If you watched the HBO broadcast, you saw the other two fights that were broadcast. WBA super featherweight champ Alberto Machado took 2 minutes and 25 seconds to dismantle and knock out Yondal Evans. Machado improves to 21-0 with 17 knockouts. And Evans drops to 20 wins, 2 losses with 14 knockouts. My issue with this fight, it was clearly Machado all the way. Evans never had a chance, but the referee almost got Evans killed. I think that this fight should have been stopped after the second knockdown. It was clear from me watching on my couch that this guy was not 100%. His eyes were rolling back in his head. He wasn't responsive as well as he should be, and he wasn't even following the directions. Move over here, move over there, move over here. That's what the ref was saying, and he lets him continue. You see, that's where a commission needs to sit a referee down and say, hey, when a guy doesn't respond, the whole idea of having you ask the questions, are you okay, move over here, move over there, is to see how his response is. If he's stumbling around and his eyes are glassy and he can't respond, hello, that means don't let him continue. Stupid decision by the referee to let that fight continue. And that third knockdown looked pretty severe. I have not heard anything on Evans' condition this morning, but hopefully he's okay. And in the fight of the night on HBO, in my opinion, and let me tell you, if you don't love Heather Hardy, I can't wait to get Dax on, because when Heather Hardy first hit the scene, I was very, not anti Heather personally, but just anti the way she was being brought up and everything else. But I have grown to absolutely, not just because she's gorgeous, but I have grown to absolutely love Heather the Heat Hardy. She improved to 22-0 and scored a 10-round unanimous decision over Shelly Vincent, who only has 2 losses. She's 23-2, and both losses were against Heather Hardy. Shalito, which is Shelly's nickname, Shalito's Way, I thought she fared very well. I thought the scores might have been a little closer, 97-93 twice, 97-91 in favor of Heather Hardy. I thought the scores were a little closer, but what an exciting fight. Heather Hardy throws a lot of punches, and so does Shalito Vincent. But my question to you, Sal, and Jim Lampley made himself look like a complete moron, or maybe not. Maybe I'm the moron. But if a female fight is 2-minute rounds and a men's fight is 3-minute rounds, and you throw X amount of punches in a female 2-minute round, how the hell do you come up with it's like throwing this many punches in a 3-minute? I know it's not. It's throwing this many punches in 2 minutes. If you want to get an accurate comparison between the total amount of punches, look how many punches a men's fight it takes. How many punches are landed in 2 minutes? That was a completely ridiculous statement. What was your thoughts? Did you catch that or no?
I caught a lot, but I'll tell you what, it's funny. It really is. And I know his foundation of thought right there. He's looking at the cumulative blows in the 2-minute period and averaging them out per round and just adding another round in there. And
another minute. But that's not math. That's not a correct mathematical statement. That's
reality.
All.
It's not reality. Hey, guess what? I believe that fight last time they fought was one of the fights of the year. Correct? When Heather Hardy and Vincent fought.
Somebody, and for female fights, yeah.
And let me tell you, you could see why. I mean, they were action packed. It was a great fight. You saw why Heather Hardy is the champion, and she's not afraid to engage. Neither was Shelly Vincent. I mean, both these women wanted to win this fight, and Heather Hardy, just had a little more firepower, a little bit more. I think she was definitely hitting the mark a little bit better and a little bit more effectively, and that's why she won the fight. But Vincent was not to be discounted. I mean, she was in the fight the whole way, and she let herself be known. No, it was a very exciting, very good fight, and no matter what the punch stat or punch count was, you have 2 minutes of action-packed, no-nonsense kind of engaging fights and exchanging of punches that you look to see in a world-class fight, and both these women were world-class.
Yeah, I find it strange that Shelly Vincent doesn't throw as many hard punches as she does. The way her body is, she's compact, and her style of fighting, you would think she would have a lot more pop behind her punches, and apparently she doesn't. Or she's not delivering them correctly. And that's another thing I noticed with Daniel Jacobs during his fight. He was slapping with the palm of his hand. I think he's starting to pick up some bad habits. This Andre Rozier is terrible. But anyway, let me just jump ahead to some other fights as well. In an IBF heavyweight title elimination bout. Phew, I hate those elimination bouts. What I liked about this fight was it actually put 2 legitimate top 10 contenders against each other. Something that, this fraud, this big fat baby fraud that's actually getting a world title shot, and they're leaving the opponent secret. It's a secret. It'll be announced. It's like, give me a break. They're still looking for some slug to put this fat pig in against. And I would like to see him fight a legitimate top 10 contender, which he hasn't done. And he ducked Pulev, but Pulev fights Fury. Unless they're waiting to see, they can't, because this was an IBF eliminator, and Fat Pig Miller is fighting for the WBA regular title, which is a joke in itself. But Kubrat Pulev scored a unanimous decision over Hughie Fury. He improved to 26-1. His only loss coming at the hands of Klitschko. And Hughie Fury loses for the second time in his career. He's 21-2 with 11 knockouts. His two losses coming now at the hands of Pulev, and his only other loss was against Joseph Parker. The way the judges scored it: 117, 111, 118, 110, 115, 113. It was kind of a hug fest for a while. That's what a lot of times when you watch Hughie Fury, that's how he fights. But Pulev deserved this fight, and he deserved the win, and he deserves a shot at Anthony Joshua, who's the IBF champion. So we'll see when Pulev fights this guy. But I would much rather see Pulev fight Fat Miller, because Fat Miller's a bum, in my opinion, and I'd like to see him fight a real fight. They're going to feed him another slug to fight for the title. Then he's going to claim that he's the real champ. You watch. I see it all. It makes me sick. But anyway, two other fights I want to talk about. Interim super lightweight champ and Regis Progress improved to 23-0 with 19 knockouts when he scored a 12-round decision over Terry Flanagan. This was an impressive win for Progress. Flanagan drops the second fight of his career, 33-2 now, 119, 108, 118, 109. And 117, 110 were the way the judges scored it. I'm okay with scorecards like that, 1 point difference. It was a entertaining fight, in my opinion. And finally, for the vacant IBF junior welterweight title, Ivan Baranchyk improved to 19-0 and with 12 knockouts when he stopped Anthony Yigit, who loses for the first time in his career. He's now 21-1-1 in the seventh round to pick up that strap. So congratulations to Baranchyk on that one. But Sal, real quick, that's the way fights should be. We talk about this all the time. Contender fighting contender. The winner moves up to fight a champion. This Fat Miller crap makes me sick. And Pulev, he ducked Pulev. He clearly ducked Pulev. And now he gets a world title shot, and Pulev gets another eliminator.
Well, it's politics as usual in a fight game on that level. And, they do the little finagling here and there and, take a sidestep, take a payment, take a this, take that. And it's a different game today, Bill. I was the hardest one to convince of that. I'm the Rip Van Winkle of boxing. I fell asleep and took some time off. And when I woke up, it's a whole nother world. And I can't believe some of the things, I feel like going back retro, let's have 8-ounce gloves. Let's have the same day weigh-ins. Let's go 15 rounds for a title fight. That's what I'm talking about. But it's a different game. Let's have the top 10 contenders vie for the top spot to get a world title shot. Let the champion defend it every 6 months against the number one ranked contender. Let him fight anybody else in the top 10 or 15 he wants to in between. These are things that built this game to be where the champions looked at as an elitist and not just another belt carrier that is happen to have a belt draped over his shoulder or on his waistline from all the sanctioning bodies creating these different titles just for the sanctity of having money generated.
Boxing, that's the way it is. That's the way it is now, Sal.
It's
never. No, it always was a business, but yeah, it's never gonna get back to that. There's no such thing as a real champion anymore. The closest thing we can get to a real champion, a pure champion in any division, is if they end up with all four of the major belts. That's it. That's the only way. But they do not fight. This fight would impress me. And don't get me wrong. I don't think Hughie Fury should have even been a ranked fighter, but it is what it is. And he was a ranked fighter in multiple divisions, and so is Pulev. And they fight each other. That's the least we can expect from fighters. I keep saying this about Jarrell Miller. Who's he fought? They're pounding on his chest He can't reach his chest because his arms and his chest is so fat. But so he's got other people pounding his chest for the fat pig. And who's he bragging about beating? 172-year-old Tomasz Adamek, who was a puffed up heavyweight after he was a light heavyweight fighter and a cruiserweight fighter. Now he's a heavyweight, and he's 150 years old. Came out of retirement to fight to fight Fat Pig Miller, and you're going to get a title shot as a reward. That, you see, this is the part of the sport that I hate. This is the part that's pushing me out faster than I ever thought it would. I don't mind seeing the fights that we don't really want to see. I don't really mind. I can live with all the titles. I can even live with the marination process. But what I can't live with is when guys don't even fight anybody and they're able to get a title shot. And that's what's happened with Miller. That's really what's happened with Miller. You take a look at the main fight from the weekend, Daniel Jacobs against Sergiy Derevyanchenko. Well, Daniel Jacobs earned his spot. He clearly earned it. Yes, he took an easy title shot, in my opinion. No disrespect to Sergiy Derevyanchenko, but I didn't think that he stood a chance with Danny Jacobs. And the truth of the matter is that title shouldn't have even been vacant. That title actually should have, Triple G shouldn't have lost it in the beginning, but that title should actually be in Canelo's possession right now. Instead, they strip it from Triple G. They make Derevyanchenko, he was the reason, because he was a mandatory for Triple G, which is a joke in itself. The guy is 12-1 now.
What do you got? 8 fights?
He's had 12 pro fights. 13 now. But Jacobs fought a legitimate guy. That's all my point is. He fought a legitimate guy. And you can't say that with Jarrell Baby Miller. You can't. And it's a joke. It's a joke. It makes me sick, Sal.
Like I said, Bill, I had the hardest time with the realization that the game is that different today. And it's going to survive. It's going to have its lulls. It's going to have its highs. And we're going to be lifelong boxing fans, and that's what they know. It's just going to be frustrating to take the roller coaster and see the good years without the continuity of continuance. It's going to be, that's redundant, but you know what I mean. It's going to be a choppy ride. We're going to have some great years. We're going to have some not so great years. And the whole thing is going to be predicated on who's out there, who's the fodder, who's going to be the opponent, who's going to be the champion, who's going to be groomed, who's going to be managed, moved. And it's going to be, like I said earlier, too many belts, too many titles, too many champions, too much. It's just too much. And, our old buddy Boom Boom Mancini said it best in the most simplistic terms. There's only one world. Why can't there only be one world title? Good.
Well, there should only be one world title, and it's sad that the people today don't see it. That's for sure, and it really bothers me to no end when that's what's going on in the sport. To be honest with you, but in any event, hey, listen, we're going to take a short break here. Hopefully, Sal isn't. You know what? Maybe. Hopefully you'll come back after we get Dax on. We're going to get Dax on for a little bit, and I don't think we're going to have Alex today. He's a little under the weather, so make sure you stick around and be ready for the return here, Sal. So
you talking to me? Talking to me? Hey, you know how much I love comebacks?
Yeah. Hey, there was a guy that tried to break your record. I don't know if I ever told you this, but he came out and he would have broken your record. Except the problem is he lost the fight.
I know. I saw Henry Haskell was commenting on that.
Yeah.
Because actually, I think he did exceed the 25 years, 66 days, 22 and a half hours. I put the hours.
He did. He did exceed that, but he lost.
But he lost.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you what. I was told by none other than world famous, and one of the best matchmakers in today's game, Eric Botcher. He was into the restaurant a couple months ago, and he said, "Sal, there's a guy trying to break your world record," and I think his name was Damon Feldman.
He's not. he was a promoter, like celebrity boxing promoter. But
Well,
listen,
I know,
let's
but
hold that
actually-
hold that
Go
thought.
on,
I gotta take this break, brother. So we'll be back to Sal right after Dax is scheduled to join us. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you!
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And joining me right now is my man Dax Kahn. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning. How's everybody today?
Doing pretty well, my man. Before I ask you about the Jacobs fight, I got to jump right into the Heather the Heat Hardy fight. You know, I admitted earlier, I don't know if you were listening, but when Heather first came out, you were doing interviews with her, and I think we even had her on the show once, and you were high on her back even when she started, and I was negative. I had nothing against her or anything, but I was negative about the rise and everything else. But I got to tell you, in the last few months, I have grown to absolutely love Heather Hardy. I mean, I just think that she's everything that's good about the sport. What was your thoughts on her performance yesterday?
At the start of that fight, I actually thought it was going to pick up right where the last fight left off.
See, I thought it did. I thought it did.
Shelley went right after Heather. But Heather has shown massive improvements in her overall skill set. She used footwork. She didn't just throw punches, hoping they would land.
How about the jab? How about that jab?
That's what I'm saying. In the past, but she threw accurate punches. She worked the body. Her years, well, not years, but her time spent over in MMA with Bellator, I believe that's helped her quite a bit. Heather, she has a great chin. She's proved that over there. If you've ever watched any of her MMA fights, some of the kicks and punches, a bloody mess, and Heather just keeps coming forward. She's generally, she's tough, and she has evolved as a fighter, as a genuine, legitimate fighter, not just, somebody who goes out there and just hopes that they can overwhelm their opponent or just hopes that, they're going to get the victory, So there's nothing that, you cannot appreciate about her. The only thing that Heather still lacks a little bit is that punching power. Other than that, she's really a complete fighter right now.
I agree with you. You put it in perspective perfectly. Her overall boxing skill really was showcased last night. And no disrespect to Shelley Vincent, now with Heather, with the comment you just made, Heather is more of a boxer. She fights smart, and she'll never be able to develop the power that too bad she didn't have. But what surprises me is Shelley Vincent. Because Shelley Vincent's body and her build and her style really screams knockout power. And I don't know if she just doesn't have it or if she's not delivering her punches correctly to utilize it. I can't quite put my finger on it because the way she delivers her punches do seem like they should have some pop behind them, whether she's not following through all the way. I don't know. But she's someone that, earlier in her career, I mean, she's 39 now or 37 or something. Earlier in her career, I wish she would have hooked up with someone that could have helped her, uncover that hidden power. Because it looks like she should have it, Dax.
Yes. You know what it is? She doesn't, I guess, if you watch her, she doesn't really plant her feet. She kind of smothers her punches. She's not tall at all. I believe she's only about 5'1", and her arm reach isn't exactly the longest either, not even for her height. So, Shelley developed this bad habit of why she throws a lot of punches. Valiant punches is what has helped her win most of her fights. There's no steam, no power behind them because she doesn't plant her feet and because she doesn't really work herself in there with that double jab. More or less, if you were going to say her type of body, her type build, for her to be able to be successful would be kind of how you would do with any fighter with that size disadvantage and reach disadvantages. You kind of use that Mike Tyson game plan. And because when you watch Shelley fight, she does have that peekaboo style. She keeps her gloves up high. She opens up. Every now and then she covers and then she fires back, but she doesn't work her way in there and she doesn't impose herself and use her center of gravity while on the inside. And that's what has always hurt her, in my opinion. That's why she only has one knockout in those 22, 23 wins.
The other thing that impressed me about Heather Hardy is she did not run out of gas at all. I thought Shelley was getting a little tired. I also didn't hear that much constructive instruction by Peter Manfredo in the corner. He was correct in saying don't slow down, don't take your foot off the gas, keep punching, especially the last 10 seconds. And she was trying to do that. But other than that, I think at one point he said to her, you gotta dodge, what was his choice of words? You gotta slip those punches or something like that. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, I think she knows that too, but can you give her a little instruction on how to do it? I don't know. Am I being a little too hard on him? Because I'm going to be real hard on Rozier here in a minute.
Yeah, it's sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah, right.
But as far as the stamina aspect goes, again, I have to refer over to MMA where Heather has had her Bellator fights. that's a whole different type of stamina because you're using more muscles than you're using in boxing, and the rounds are longer, and there is no breaks, there is no feel-outs, there is no laying against the ropes, waiting to counterpunch. It's go, go, go from start to finish. So, in my opinion, that has really helped her stamina and has helped her accuracy, and I also believe, it's helped her realize that you can't just stand in there and throw punches and just, see who lands the most punches and let the judges decide, in order to gain respect, in order to be able to control this ring and set the tempo, you're going to have to do something to neutralize your opponent. As you speak about, Heather, you yourself, Bill, from all those years being involved with Chevelle Halbach, you know how hard these women work. I get the luxury, or have gotten the luxury sometimes, of spending time with fighters away from their environment, meaning, away from the press, away from fans, and so on. And at the Give a Kid a Dream event held by Gleason's, I had that luxury of spending time with both Heather Hardy, Sonia Lamanakis, Alicia Ashley, Keisha McLeod, and you get to see these people in a new light. Yes, we know they're fighters, we know that they work hard, but, you see them, their personal life, they have full-time jobs. They're not getting the pay that the men are. They're selling their own tickets despite having a promoter. And they're remaining humble, that they're working so much harder. You have to appreciate that, and you have to say to yourself, I want these people to do good because look what they're going through just to get the same thing or the same accolades as these guys that are on the undercards that are coming out, in the first or second fight have already achieved, yet they're at a world championship level. Especially when they're a single parent. Any parent knows whether or not you're a parent, you're a single parent, how hard it is. But to be able to do that and hold the job at the same time and become successful, you have to respect that. And when they do get that little bit of success, they all manage to remain humble. The men need to actually take, notes once again from what these ladies are doing. And maybe the sport would, revolve and get back to what it used to be a little bit more instead of, so many attitudes and so many titles and so many guys beating their chest and saying, I'm the best, I'm the best. These ladies are out there showing they're the best.
Yeah, there's a lot of frauds in this sport now, Dax. There's no question about that. Jumping to the main event here. Danny Jacobs wins the IBF middleweight belt that was vacated or stripped, I should say, from Triple G by the IBF. He fights Sergiy Derevyanchenko last night. And, Danny Jacobs won the fight. I have my hang-ups with Jacobs' performance, and I guess I'm being a little hard on him because my expectations for Danny Jacobs has risen so high. I think he's one of the top middleweights out there, Dax. You know that. And the thing is I was expecting one of those career-defining performances last night. We didn't get it. Now, I don't know if I'm underestimating Derevyanchenko and if he possibly prevented this signature performance by Danny, or if Daniel Jacobs is fighting just enough to win, which he did last night. He fought enough to win. I agree with the 115-112 scores. I felt he outperformed Derevyanchenko. He deserved the win. There's no question about it. But I also thought that during that fight, he could have maybe legitimately dropped Derevyanchenko. That first knockdown was a knockdown, but it wasn't hurt or anything like that. And I didn't hear that instruction from Andre Rozier. Andre Rozier trains his fighters to fight just enough to win. And I think that's dangerous because you never know who's on the other side of the ring. What's your thoughts?
Danny has definitely evolved as a fighter. Derevyanchenko first, we'll address that. The guy may only have 13 fights, but he's a serious fighter, believe me. Former Olympian, a lot of European continent medals in different tournaments, and I've covered a few of his fights. One actually in Westchester a few years ago on a card that was great for such a small venue. It had Ivan Barancek, Annabelle Kurtzy, Derevyanchenko, all who have either become world champions or who have become world title challengers. And Derevyanchenko, believe me, this is a guy who he's strong. He comes forward. He has a lot of power. He has very good technique. The only thing suspect on him, even then, when he only had 4 or 5 fights, is his stamina. And if you look at his career, really, all but the Torino Johnson fight have all gone, in 8 rounds or less. So, Derevyanchenko is dangerous. And, when he comes in there close, you just look at the shoulders on him. You can see this is a guy you're not going to move around too easy. Daniel Jacobs, he's evolved as a fighter. For so long, he had that stigma upon him, from that Pirog knockout loss. Even after he had knocked out Peter Quillen, he went on 8 or 9 fight KO streak. He had that the regular WBA middleweight title. Just as that was starting to leave, he had that flash knockout suffered in his fight against Sergio Mora. So he kind of lost any respect. He was built up then. And, then he fights Triple G. People expected him to get blown out by Triple G. Yeah, he got knocked down, but he got back up and he put on a great performance. I actually think that Daniel Jacobs' fights with Triple G were closer than Canelo's fights with Triple G. And Daniel Jacobs, when you look at his last 5 or 6 opponents, I think his last 6 opponents are combined 152, 4, and 3. 3 of those were current or former world champions. 5 were undefeated. Think about that. Think about, who else in the division, and there's very few guys in the sport that are fighting people at that high quality of a level. And Daniel Jacobs, no, he's not going out there knocking guys out, destroying guys like you'd expect, but he's going out there, he's fighting smart, he's controlling the pace, and that's what's brought him to a new level, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree that he's fighting smart, but he's fighting just enough to win. You mentioned Derevyanchenko having a stamina issue. Well, in the fight last night, to me, it looked like Danny Jacobs was the guy that was taking several rounds off, and Derevyanchenko poured it on towards the end of the fight. I was a little concerned about that. Listen, I just think that Andre Rozier, and I keep hating to bring his name up to even give him the press, but it just seems that the guy acts like he's a Zen master, and he's reducing fighters to I understand the calmness, and you got to have a sense of calmness in a fight, but I think he's lulling them to sleep too much. There was one point, I forget what round it was, he kind of raised his voice to Daniel Jacobs, and he was saying, I want you to do this or whatever, and Daniel Jacobs snapped something back. I kept rewinding it to try to hear what he said, and I couldn't make it out. But it shut Rozier right up. Rozier didn't say another thing, and he just was, came back and the round started. But it makes me wonder what control this guy really has. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being hard on Rozier, but Jacobs, I thought should have. I thought he was in a position to have one of those signature wins last night, and he had a win.
Think about this. This is why I think Daniel Jacobs fought the right fight last night. Derevyanchenko, and I've said it a lot of times that he's a 5-round fighter. Those first 5 rounds, he's so dangerous. He's had one win in the 8th round, and then that last fight with Torino Johnson. Even though Torino Johnson isn't an elite caliber, he's a very solid fighter, and Derevyanchenko got that late 12th round knockout. These guys fought for the IBF title, and there's that 10-pound hydration rule. So both these guys were in phenomenal shape. It's not like they hydrated a lot overnight, where you're saying to yourself, how much did they drain themselves for this? And Derevyanchenko, even though stamina was an issue, he didn't come out there full board the whole fight. He was going to be dangerous the whole fight, the whole night. Danny Jacobs knew that. And, again, we're not the guys in the ring, so we don't know exactly how strong Derevyanchenko is. But I'm guessing when you were inside and he realized that he can just kind of push him back like he has other middleweights, maybe this isn't a guy to take chances with. And he did get clipped with a few good, solid shots.
Yeah, no, I know he did. I just thought that, like, for an example, Daniel Jacobs, it was a knockdown in the first round over Derevyanchenko, but it was one of those, yes, a punch came, yes, he went down, yes, it was a legitimate knockdown, but it made me sick to hear that the commentators were discrediting Derevyanchenko when he hurt Daniel Jacobs, which, that could have even been an off-balance shot as well. But the commentators made it sound like, oh, well, Danny Jacobs really hurt Derevyanchenko in the first round, and Derevyanchenko just grazed him. And I'm saying to myself, nah, I think they were both pretty equal. They both gained the respect of each other, but that was about it. But
I think they were both slightly not hurt, but, again, maybe how you said it, they both got each other's respect. Definitely.
Yeah, they got their attention. The shot that I thought, if somebody asked me which shot I thought was a better, harder shot, I actually would have said Derevyanchenko's shot, because, that put Danny on his bicycle, and he kind of changed the way he fought for the rest of the night. So I I think that made more of an impact.
But again, that just shows the involvement of Danny Jacobs as a fighter. Danny Jacobs 2 years ago would have stood there, got reckless, tried to win for the kill, and now Danny Jacobs is recognizing, okay, he's really not as hurt as I think he is, and maybe I need to sit back a little bit until I know a little bit better. So again, he's another guy who's evolved as a fighter.
Yeah, but Dax, my point about that is I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. He's evolved. He's much smarter in there. He's a better fighter right now than he was 5 years ago. There is no question about that, okay? And this is what I'm telling you. I honestly believe Daniel Jacobs is one of the top three. He's got to be one of the top three middleweights out there. But this style that he forget the fact that he's developed and matured as a fighter. Forget that. We both agree. But the way that he's maturing and the way he's using that maturity is dangerous when you're fighting that upper echelon fighter, especially if you have to go to someone else's backyard. Fighting enough to win isn't enough anymore. You got to go in for the kill. Something that was mentioned that was quoted from Heather Hardy. She said by switching sides and going to fight MMA, she realized that you have to hurt your opponent, not just win. And that's the way she fights now in the squared circle. And that's something that I feel Daniel Jacobs. Now I will admit, when he feels his opponent's hurt, he's a great finisher. He tries to go in for the kill. But then he went back to that safety first, just do enough to win. I think as he progresses, Dax, it's going to haunt him. That's all I'm saying.
But it might. On the other hand, I think that the recklessness of going in there, like, for example, how we did with Peter Quillen, that is what would hurt him more at that upper level. That's just my opinion. And I think the Triple G fight is the fight where we really learned a lot when he got knocked down and we seen him get up and he completed that whole fight. He was very competitive. He changed his style around. So that to me is what shows, the progressive and the levels and the development of a fighter. But, time will only tell on that.
I agree. I think that that fight, he was trying to win that fight for all 12 rounds. And maybe there was a little feel of desperation in that fight because he hit the deck. But, maybe they felt that they were cruising to a, winning every round type of a fight. That's my point about fighting, just enough to win. And then as we hear, Julie Lederman scores the fight 114-113 for Derevyanchenko. She must have had a different view of the fight or was scoring for aggressiveness. But the score of 115-112 or even 114-113 for Danny Jacobs was more realistic, in my opinion. Harold Lederman's scorecard was way out of whack. If everybody, if they listen to him, then they're crying robbery, But
I had it 115-112 for Jacobs.
Right,
my score.
Right, exactly. The other fight I wanted to mention on that card was the Alberto Machado fight. He destroyed Yondale Evans, but my concern in that fight was the referee. After the second knockdown, Evans was done. He wasn't responsive. His eyes, I could see from my couch, were rolled back in his head. And when he was told to move over here, move over there, he wasn't moving. He was stumbling, and he lets him continue. There's where I feel the problem lies with referees. Everybody's so quick to say, oh, the fight was stopped too soon or whatever. But in this case, the reason why you ask a fighter to do something that's not ordinary, like just raise your gloves and say, I'm okay, the reason why these commissions are making a move to the left, move to the right, is to see how they respond. Do they understand I'm telling them to move over here or over there? Are his feet under him? And none of that was evident to me watching from my couch last night. I thought that this referee put Evans in danger. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, and Machado's a big puncher. It's not just, it's not as though Evans was just caught with a solid shot and caught off balance. Machado is a big puncher, which should tell somebody, all right, not only did he get caught flush, but he got caught flush by a big puncher, and the chances of him just shaking that off really quick are slim and none. So, yeah, I think that Evans did take a few too many punches. Machado is a guy who still needs seasoning before facing, another title holder like Gervonta Davis or WBC belt holder Miguel Burchell former champion Francisco Vargas was my thought before last night. He's gotten so much better even since 2 fights ago when he won the title against Jezreel Corrales. And Machado, I really see Miguel Cotto doing a great job with this kid. You see the influence of Miguel Cotto, you see the aggressiveness of a young Miguel Cotto, and you see the maturity of a seasoned Miguel Cotto inside of this kid. And, he's only got 21 fights now. In another 3 or 4 fights, Alberto Machado, he just very well may be the man at 129 pounds.
Let me tell you, you're doing a comparison with Miguel Cotto. That's pretty good.
That's his mentor, Miguel. That's his Miguel's pride and joy.
But what I'm saying is, I think he's got more talent than Cotto. I mean, natural talent. He's got the physique. He's got a jab. We didn't see it on display last night because the fight ended so quickly. But I think he's got more natural tools than Cotto ever had. So I can see your point about how excited Cotto is to have this guy, seeing a bit of himself in there and then some, which is good. Hey, before we let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts.
When he fought Jezreel Corrales, just to mention, saying the natural talent, you see, early he had a little bit of problems with Jezreel Corrales' awkward style, and he adapted. So, yes, I agree. He does have more natural talent.
Before we let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Pulev-Hughie Fury fight, which I thought was a significant fight. I'm appalled at Jarrell Miller and his rise and how he's got there and this opportunity he's getting to fight for the WBA regular heavyweight title. And people are forgetting that he clearly ducked Pulev. He was ordered to fight Pulev, and he ducked him, and it suffered no consequence. And Pulev, and I'm not saying he's a world beater because he's not, but what interested me and what impressed me in this particular fight, and again, Hughie Fury, in my opinion, was a bit overrated too. But the fact is the fact. They were both ranked top 10 contenders in multiple sanctioning bodies, and they fought each other. This is what I want to see out of this sport of boxing, Dax. And what bothers me is when certain fighters, like Pulev, are forced to constantly fight other contenders in quote, elimination fights, because he's fought in several of them, and still you get these other fighters that are not required to fight anybody of substance. What's your thoughts on the fight and that comment?
It was, I don't know, age, experience. Hughie, more or less taken to school by Pulev. Hughie Fury is young. He hasn't quite really developed his man build. By that, I mean, yes, he's big, he's tall, we know that, he has a long reach, but he hasn't fully, developed, physically, his body hasn't reached that maximum bone structure. Pulev, cut him early. Pulev, he controlled the whole fight. But credit to Hughie Fury. Once he got that cut, he came out there, looking, to try and turn that around. He didn't want to take chances of the ref stopping that. But, as far as that comment on Jarrell Miller, so is boxing. Right now that seems to be the direction that the sport's headed in. That seems to be the way that fights are sold. It seems to be the way that a lot of guys who don't deserve title shots get them. And in my opinion, by giving them, Bill, even a mention, by giving it attention, all you're doing is you're feeding into that. You're feeding into exactly what you're going against.
Yeah, well,
you're doing that. You're promoting what you're hating that they're doing.
I got you. But it's so appalling, Dax. He's not a legitimate fighter. He's not a legitimate fighter. I'm sorry. And the politics of this sport and the under the table money that's given to the powers that be to give people opportunities is what the problem is. Yeah, we've always dealt with that. We've always dealt with corruption in boxing. I know, but the problem is it's even worse now. It's even worse. All you got to do is mention Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather rematch. Oh, by the way, once you beat Adrian Broner, then you get to fight me. Who is Floyd Mayweather? Floyd Mayweather doesn't have any juice anymore. And the other thing is I don't think Pacquiao's even going to beat Broner. So we're never going to see it. It's all a big sham scam, Dad.
Let me ask you a question, Bill. Seriously, honestly, why even mention it? Why mention Floyd? Why mention Manny? At any point in time, that little time right there, Bill. as crazy as the sport makes you, me, and everybody else, we should have been talking about the World Boxing Super Series last night and other things like that that are actually, as they continue to grow, like the World Boxing Super Series and other types of events like that, come on, that's actually going to weed things out because you have no choice but the best fighting the best. You have no choice but the best fighting the best. But look, and anybody who doesn't join in there, guess what? They've shown their colors.
Exactly. That's the key, what you just said. The guys that don't show. And by the way, Regis Progress, who won and is moving on, this kid, he's a guy that was coddled a little bit, and then his last, I don't know, half a dozen fights have all been progressively better and better, and that's why this kid is real, beating a real fighter in Terry Flanagan. So that was an impressive fight for sure. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, you said it perfectly. Regis Prograis has really developed as a fighter. He came out there, even 3-4 fights ago, it was all about power. Now Prograis, he breaks his opponents down slowly, and, he does the work. He gets it done. And yes, Terry Flanagan is a real fighter. I actually picked Prograis to win by stoppage, so that, enforces how good Flanagan is. Same thing for Baranchek and Yigit. I had actually thought that Yigit was going to outbox Baranchek because Baranchek had trouble with boxers, but, Baranchek went out there, once he got the eye of Yigit hurt, he dissected it and, he forced the corner into a stoppage. This shows the levels. By the time this is over, just much like in the first one with the Cruiserweight division, the only titles that the winner is not going to hold is the WBO title, which is held by Maurice Hooker, and the WBC title, which is held by Jose Carlos Ramirez. And the winner of this, which in my opinion is going to be either Terry Flanagan or it's going to be Josh Taylor, both of those guys, one has the interim title holder, the other one has the silver title, so they're going to fight Ramirez because that makes them the #1 guy. And Jose Carlos Ramirez, this is a guy whose last 3 opponents, I spoke about Daniel Jacobs' last 6, his last 3 opponents are 71-1. And the only guy with that loss was Amir Imam. So what does that tell you exactly how deep this division is?
No, but too bad Flanagan's not going to win it. He's out now.
But he's out. But you know what? He was in there, and Terry Flanagan. He's still in that mix. He's still in the top. Same thing with Anthony Giga. And these are the guys, Bill, like you're saying before, how the sports driving is crazy. The fact they're in there, they're going after it, shows they're hungry. The guys who lost in Season 1 of the Cruiserweights, they're going back in. They joined up. They're hungry. They want to keep showing. You know what? That loss didn't send me away. And as these grow and develop, this is how boxing is going to rebuild itself into its former glory, in my opinion.
I hope you're right, brother. I hope you're right. Dax, we'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, everybody. Enjoy the day.
That's Dax Kahn. You could check him out up on Billy C. Boxing as well. Hey, listen, I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll see if the technically challenged Rocky Senecola can actually get his camera to work. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees, are you on Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knees, covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. We also offer a prescription strength topical pain relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body. Our experienced staff will work with your doctor and handle all of your Medicare or insurance paperwork. Best of all, your prescription is shipped directly to your home for free. Will you qualify for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knee or for a topical pain relief ointment covered by Medicare or private insurance at little or no cost to you?
Find out for free by calling the Back and Knee Pain Center at 1-800-604-1072. That's 1-800-604-1072, 1-800-604-1072.
Medical alarms for people who fall or have medical emergencies. You never think you'll need one until you do. Hi, I'm Lonnie Anderson for Advantage Alert. Today, our advanced systems locate and protect people inside and outside their homes, plus when they're on the road, allowing users with the press of a button to speak with an operator who can summon help. And even after 30 years, Advantage Alert's products remain amazingly affordable.
Call 800-985-1705.
Addiction is an epidemic in America. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, you need to call the R360 Network now.
I'm Ken Seeley, author, addiction recovery specialist, and former addict. R360 is a nationwide network of addiction recovery specialists that I personally selected and recommend.
The call is free, the consultation is free. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket cost.
Call 800-705-0023.
Addiction.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And guess what, boys and girls, and childrens of all ages? Sal's back with us, too. That's right. You did it, Sal. I'm so proud of you. There's a tear welting up in my eye.
Mine, too. We have ignition.
Yeah, we do. But, all right. So,
yes, sir.
Let's talk a little about some news that has taken place.
News?
Yeah, I got some emails we're going to read and discuss. But first and foremost, we missed last week's show. We actually lost power again. I live in a place that you lose power and it screws everything up for us, and it seems to be getting worse and worse. Even though they cut every tree that's around, every wire, I don't get it. But in any event, over the last one of the things I wanted to talk about last week was some of the news that had come out. Manny Pacquiao. We had talked that earlier in the month that Floyd Mayweather announced that he would be fighting Manny Pacquiao in December. A lot of us don't give a rat's you-know-what, but the truth of the matter is Manny Pacquiao took a step towards that by signing with Al Heyman. I thought that this would pave the way for Floyd to fight Manny because, after all, neither one of them are really part of the boxing scene today. I mean, Manny is technically active. Floyd is technically retired. But no one really gives a rat's you-know-what about both of these guys. And so Manny signs with Al Heyman, Sal, and then they immediately announced that Pacquiao will be fighting Adrian Broner in December. Floyd's going to fight the newspaper delivery boy that delivers him papers in Vegas. And, then should they both win, they will fight early in 2019. My question is, first of all, the majority of the true boxing fans don't even want to see either one of these fight in a ring anymore. And to add to my disgust of this is the fact that why should Manny Pacquiao have to prove himself a la fighting Adrian Broner before he gets a shot at Mayweather? It's been Pacquiao who's won his last fight, not Floyd. Floyd's been out of the ring. All right, Adrian Broner has his beef with Floyd, not Pacquiao. So why doesn't Floyd man up and just fight Broner? Why is we even talking about these guys? What's your thoughts about it all?
Well, I like what you said about Dax saying, I mean, it's true. Why are we even talking about it? I mean, what's the significance? We want to talk about fights and what their significance are. it will be. And, you know, the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight had significance 10 years ago. And, you know, we saw the fight 5 years ago. And it didn't go the way that you and I had expected it to. But, hey, you know, my quote right after that fight is, I would not pay for a rematch. And you know, this is going to be more of a human interest story of a fight. And like I said, because it has no real significance. Neither fighter is going to vie for top berth in the weight division. There's too many young guns out there and too many real fighters that want to prove themselves. And this is going to be just a human interest. Let's see what would have happened or what's going to go on. And, you know, and I don't really think it's going to do that well. And again, Floyd and Manny, if they really wanted to fight, they'd cut through the chase, get in the ring, announce it, come back and do it. Because I don't know why they have to go through a test of, well, let's see you get past here and there. And guess what? I have my doubts that Manny's going to get past Adrian Broner.
My man Jason just corrected me. The fight is in January. For some reason, I thought it was supposed to be December. Okay. December 1st was what I had heard originally, but I guess they moved it back to January. But the truth of the matter is I don't think Manny Pacquiao is going to even beat Broner. Broner's not a likable guy, but he's better than Manny Pacquiao is. Today's Manny Pacquiao. If this was an earlier version of Manny, and I don't even want to see Floyd, his face anywhere except on a milk carton. And you have to be old enough to know what that means. But the truth of the matter is that it's sad that we're getting that. But let's get some emails to comment on. We got this first one from my man Jesse, and this goes back to he's discussing Terrence Crawford's fight against Jose. His title is Jose versus Crawford. He says, I'm disappointed in Jose's performance after the 5th round. He was just standing there tall and taking combinations. Where was his head movement? He was throwing awfully wide punches, nothing to the body, non-committal to punches, hesitant, and wasn't attacking Crawford. Crawford was patient and not taking any risks, but was the attacker, like usual, maybe of Jose's reach and countering. Jose Junior there, he didn't have a chance. I was impressed that he stood in there and finished the fight. You know, the way he did, or at least until he was finished, I should say. Crawford's a better fighter. I didn't think that that Jose was going to beat him at all. I mean, I was impressed with the size difference. And in the beginning of the fight, he did seem like, you know, he would be able to wear Terrence Crawford down. But he never really changed. I mean, he tired himself out, and then Crawford does what Crawford does. I mean, this was a guy that made a statement, stopping him in the final round. I mean, it was a great fight. I didn't really give Jose a shot at winning this fight, Sal.
No, nor did I. And you know, it was a good fight. I mean, it was, you know, it had its moments. But Crawford did exactly what I thought he would do. And he's the real deal. And no way getting past that. The guy's going to give us some great fights in the future. And I look forward to seeing him again and again.
Some other, well, let me finish reading the email. He says, hey Billy, what's your thoughts on Carlos Adames? Is he a big risk for the top guys in the welterweight division? He's big and he's improving. He might be a 54-pounder. You know, just, you know, when I listen to the questions sometimes in the comments, it puts it in perspective of how sad things are. Carlos Adames is a good fighter. And any top fighter in the division, the welterweight division, or if he does move up to 154, should want to fight this guy. The mentality of this sport has reversed. It's like years ago, the fighters seeked out the toughest opponents to prove that they were better. Today, they don't do that. They take the easy opponents to take that least amount of risk for the maximum amount of reward. Now, from a business standpoint, I can't say I blame him, but from a boxing purist standpoint, it's what's ruined boxing. What's ruined boxing? I've been saying it in the chat room all morning. What's ruined boxing, in my opinion, was Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Al Heyman. They ruined it to the degree of it is where it is today. Boxing has been slowly killing itself for years. But you know what I'm saying, Sal. I mean, these guys shouldn't be wondering, well, should I fight this guy? Well, maybe not. He's too tough. I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, of course. You know, we look at the whole slippery slope that the moves that boxing, or the direction that boxing has been taking. And like I said, in my mind, it started slipping back with the day before weigh-in. You know, they lower the benchmark. They do things differently, and maybe they do it for one reason, but out comes another that it serves. And you know, the whole thing, the safety first, the boxing gloves, this being larger, and you know, it's not the game that you and I heard our fathers talk about, or our uncles, about the glory days and about the radio days and about the boxing on TV and the Don Dumpy Thursday night fights, Friday night fights. And, you know, those are long, long gone. And we're supposed to see boxing today as it has evolved. But to me, it's kind of done the reverse. And it's a shame. But it'll be here. It'll always be here. And that's why I love the sport. And the facets and the things that may change here and there, they'll be benign in the long run, but they do affect the trickle and the drips on the forehead, if you will.
Yeah, but Sal, the problem is, once you have fighters that are being coddled or being promoted, if you will, for not performing, and they become champions, and then they cherry pick their opponents, that's not boxing. That's and I can't see it. And I agree with what Dax said. Dax said that the World Boxing Super Series, stuff like that, could bring boxing back to its glory. Yeah, I agree, because of the theory behind it. The theory is you don't know who you're going to fight. You're all going in there, and it's a single elimination tournament, and the best fighter of that crop of participants will rise to the top. And that's not what's happening now. You can't have a fighter that is a so-called champion and then not want to fight somebody because he might be too tough. Or you can't have a fighter that hasn't proven himself inside the ring and then get a world title shot. Even your boy, your idol, Deontay the Fraud Wilder, goes around beating up you know what I'm talking about. He punches that
when he punched out the
mascot. He beats up a mascot, and you know, the whole charade was so WWE like. You know, they're egging him on to punch him, and you know, they claimed he broke his nose. Then they're saying he didn't break his nose, and I don't even know if he knew what they were saying. They were speaking Spanish, he was speaking you know, English. So I don't know, man. But anyway, that was such a joke. But anyway, one last thought from Jesse. He says, "Hey Billy, what's your thoughts on Bivol versus Pascal?" He says Pascal's done and only swings for the fences. It's a bad matchup for Bivol, but he's not improving with Pascal. You know, this is another great example. Thanks for the email, Jose. Jesse. I'm looking at his subject. You know, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Jean Pascal was never really a boxer. He was swinging for the fences his whole time. So here's a guy that I thought was a bit overrated, but he was a champion and so on and so forth. Now, Dmitry Bivol is a quality fighter. A lot of people think he might be the best light heavyweight out there. And here's a guy that was on a fast climb to the top, wins a title, and wanted to fight Sergey Kovalev, and then Kovalev loses, and then the fight's not happening, and he picks Jean Pascal and makes it worse. The Dead put a fork in me, HBO Sports. Dead is going to broadcast this fight. You know, so I mean, I would think that HBO would want to go out with a bang, go out with a good fight, Instead, they go Dimitri Bivol against Jean Pascal. That fight's not going to be a good fight. Bivol's going to knock him out. And, Jean Pascal has already retired. This is my point, Sal. These are the kinds of fights that these promoters put together. And the fans, the young crop of fans today are buying it. They're buying into it. If they weren't, they wouldn't be putting on these fights. You know what? The young fans today have to educate themselves about this sport. Go back, go on YouTube, spend a day, watch some old fights. And I say old, look at fights prior to 1980 or even some early 80s fights, but prior to 1980, and you'll see real fights. You'll see guys and understand who the guys are that are fighting each other and why the significance of that fight was happening. Today, all you have is WWE. Boxing has become WWE, Sal.
Yes, and to a degree, you were right on the money. And like I said, it'll have its ebb and flow, and we will have the young fans that will help sustain the interest, and we'll have the older fans that will have the interest but wait for the games to change the way it used to be. It'll never be the way it used to be. And so we come to terms and we say, hey, it's still the sport we love. We just got to hold on and, make the best of what we remember and see what they can do to make these fights happen. I mean, that's just it. The promoters and the managers and the fighters themselves, they protect their own, they do this, they do that. And it's politics today. It's everything. Who's going to take a sidestep? Who's going to take a payday to not have a fight? And who's going to step up? And who's going to evolve? And who's going to be in a title fight but just be an opponent? Who's going to have this? It's the whole promotion. You're a commodity.
Well, you just said something that was never used to be said.
No.
In a way, no. What I mean is, in a way, who's going to be the opponent? Okay, there was always an opponent, but what evolved in the last decade is the definition of I'm the A side. Now the A side fighter, all of a sudden, that is the guy that gets to negotiate. I'm the A side. I get to come out last. I get to be announced last. I have my team carrying all my 97 belts that I've accumulated in 3 fights, and he can have his 96 belts second. But the truth of the matter is that in boxing, what has to happen is you got to have the fighter earn his spot, because it's discouraging for young kids that are in the sport now, and they see no matter how hard they work, unless they sign their life away with some greedy promoter or manager, they're not going to get the opportunity. And that's the way it works. Now, that's the way it always worked, but it's a different level now. Fighters don't have to fight real fights to get opportunities anymore. Fighters just need to fight somebody. And that's the sad part. And the fan base today, at least a majority of them, don't recognize it. They don't complain like we are. And my complaint isn't that we don't have a lot of boxing available to us, because we certainly do. My complaint is we don't have any real fights available to us. Consider this. Somebody signs with PBC, and then they don't fight anyone. What's happened, Sal, is the success of the UFC. When Dana White set up the UFC, he set up a league. It was something that if boxing would have done that 50 years ago, we wouldn't be having the issues we have today. He set up a league. Then all the powers that be in boxing saw how successful it was, how profitable it was, how much more control they had over the fighters in terms of who fights who and when they fight and what the purse structure is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what a league does. That's what football and American football and Major League Baseball and the NBA and the hockey, they're leagues. And in order to be a league, you got to be on a team. In order to have a team, you got to follow certain rules. And the leagues have a union, the players' unions, and they get certain amount of rights. And the teams can't do this and can't do that. It's structured. And the UFC is very similar. Boxing is not. So what do you see? You say, and behind closed doors, everybody says, oh, the UFC model, that's really good. It would be great if boxing could be a UFC. Of course it would be great. But how are you going to do it? You'd have to nicely ask the sanctioning bodies to just walk away and let you form a league. They laugh at you. So what do? They start parading around like they're the only legitimate sanctioning body. The WBC thinks they're the only one. The WBA thinks they're the only one. IBF and WBO, respectively, the same thing. So when you become a fighter, when you become ranked in one of their rankings, then you are, in a sense, signing on with them. So then what do? They control your title. They control who you fight, etc., etc. When and if you get an offer for more money, that's when you jump ship and go to another sanctioning body. Then the same thing starts again. Oh, wait, there's more. Because now what has happened is we've added to that, and this is everyone trying to be UFC. What we've added to that is the promoter aligning themselves with a network to show you the fights. So now it's become where if you used to choose a fighter, this guy's my favorite fighter, or that one's my favorite fighter, and you would follow that fighter through thick and thin. Then you say, well, okay, this sanctioning body is my sanctioning body. I'm going to follow all the fighters in this sanctioning body because they're the better fighters. Now, with the way it's unfolding, you're going to have to say, well, this promoter's my favorite promoter because he has some of my favorite fighters, so I'm going to have to subscribe to this service to get all of his fight. I mean, it's going level upon level upon level, and what we are ending up having, Sal, realistically, is we have a whole crap load full of. I almost slipped, radio stations. I almost slipped. We have a whole crap load of different mini boxing groups or leagues, if you will, to a degree. We don't have one unit. What we need is unified in boxing, not separation, and that's what we have. We have people that are going in different directions. Fighters, fans have to subscribe to a specific network to watch their favorite fighters, or they have to align themselves with a specific promoter so that they can see it. It's a mess.
Yeah, it is, and it's never gonna revert back. It's never gonna. It can only evolve and hopefully have some glimpse of what it used to be. And you're talking about tournaments, you're talking about the top, you're talking about, and yeah, I mean, why not? I've often said, why can't boxing become a league? Well, because there's too much money with promoters, managers, the whole thing, the whole dice up and everything else. And
it can.
But they don't want to lose control, Bill. That's the big thing. They don't want to lose control. And here's the thing. I think, why not? Look at every state, the 50 states of the United States. Why can't there be, in every weight class, one state champion? And they go through a tournament that's going to last every year. Every 2 months, they got to fight and eliminate. You have a national champion in each country, and then the national champions fight each other. And then you have one world champion.
Well, that only happens outside the U.S. The U.S. fighters don't want to do it. And wait, let me just say this. You're right. We could have a league, and you're right. That the whole thing is that it's about money. And I came up with a system that we could continue to use the 4 major sanctioning bodies and develop a league that would work in boxing without asking these sanctioning bodies to let go of their cash cows, which are the fighters themselves, and they can keep their claws in the mix and be just as greedy and deceitful and villainous as they are, and we could still have a league. But then there's another problem that will pop up. And that problem will be, in order to have a successful league, you got to have the fighters. And the fighters have to sign on to be part of that league. And the fighters would have to form some kind of fighters union or whatever they would have to do. And they would have to be loyal to the league. That's where boxing has become, over time, over the last 300 years, where you can't do that. What will happen is you'll have a fighter fighting in a league. There'll be a rival group of fights or league or opportunities, whatever you want to define it as, and then all of a sudden the money will be there. So Sal is part of the league. I'm not. And I challenged Sal to a fight, and Sal says, "No, I'm sorry, I'm part of this boxing league." And we say, "Yeah, but your next fight at the boxing league, you're going to make $100,000. You come and fight me, you're going to make $5 million." And Frank said, and then Sal says, "What boxing league? No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you." And that's where the problem lies. It's about money. This is called prize fighting, Sal. I'm not going to blame a fighter for making money, but there's so many things. We laugh about it, but that's the God's honest truth of how it is.
Well, it is, and you just reminded me of one of my old mantras. I said it is called prize fighting, and they should fight for undeclared first. I mean, meaning like it shouldn't be negotiated before. Well, this guy's going to get this guy's going to get that. Let's have a pot of money and let the winner get 60%, let the loser get 40%, and this way they'll both have to fight for it. And I don't see that being that. You want to fight for $1 million, hey. Someone's going to get 600,000. I'm using $1 million because it's easy. You go fight for 10 million. You can do what you got to do. But I'm just saying that would be prize fighting. The winner gets the bigger prize, and those little steps would keep the interest and keep boxing in the forefront. And but those are things that are unrealistic to happen, and we're just past the point of no return. And like I said, we got to hold on, win, lose, or draw, how we like it, and it's going to just do it with the sanctioning bodies and with the evolution or opposite of that is going to allow. It's just going to be the same rhetoric, the same voices, the same thing, and we're never going to see what we would hope to see from the game again.
Ever. You're right. Got a couple more emails we'll read. This one's from my man James. He says, "Hey, Billy, first let me say that I'm kicking myself for not emailing you 6 weeks ago. I almost dropped you a line asking if HBO was leaving the fight game. Then I convinced myself that I was reading too much into the crappy pay-per-views and the sporadic broadcast schedule they had. The writing was on the wall." He says, "As for Quigley against Hernandez, it was not a blowout. I'm not saying Hernandez won the fight, but he looked really good in a lot of the middle rounds. It was a 1 or 2 round difference at most. Finally," he says, I have to pick Broner over Pacquiao in their upcoming fight. Pacquiao's an all-time great, but at this point, he's past his prime. It's like 2005 version of Mike Tyson rather than a 1991 version of Mike Tyson. What do you think? Does Pacquiao have one more good fight in him?" I think the only fight for Manny Pacquiao would have been a rematch with Floyd. That's the only fight. I don't see him beating Broner. I'm with you, James. Broner is an idiot. He's a total idiot. He's one of the most unlikable characters in the sport of boxing today. But he's got a good chin. He's got some hand speed. He's got a decent defense. He's going to give Manny Pacquiao trouble. Manny Pacquiao is going to try to go in. And Manny Pacquiao, to beat Broner, he needs to stop Broner. Broner does have a tendency to stop throwing punches, but Manny's reflexes and his movement isn't quite as it used to be, and he's going to be in a position to get caught. I don't like the fight for Manny Pacquiao, but in any event. I got another one here. I got, let's see, how many more do I have? I got 2 more. Let's get this one out of the way. This is from my man, Matt. Matt out of Buffalo. I got to get fishing with my man Matt at one point. But he says, "Hey, Billy C., how is it possible that the PBC finally gets a rights deal and immediately makes everything all crap?" He says, "I can't believe the dumpster fire to create Broner against Pacquiao as a pay-per-view and the bogus Spence versus Garcia." See, I think that's a good fight, Spence and Garcia. He says, "This stable has in-house fights up the wazoo, and they aren't even on the horizon. At least Bob Arum generates a plan now, and he has activity with his fighters. I simply don't understand the PBC having been granted $120 million to immediately make pay-per-views and not generate a sustainable business. The first card is 2 Charlo squash matches, no indication of Cruz versus Russell Jr., Spence versus Porter, Hurd versus Charlo. Worse, on social media, Espinosa appears to have slunk to we'll give it to you when we give it to you. Horrendous. You hit the nail on the head with this piece of crap." The problem with the PBC is that the PBC has targeted a young audience, and they have brainwashed them. So this new young audience, and I say new and young, meaning new and young to the sport of boxing, believes what they see. And they believe the rhetoric that comes out of the mouth of these fighters. The Charlo brothers are a great example. The Charlo brothers are basically big mouths that have never fought any quality fighters that are in their prime. Okay, yes, they have fought some quality fighters when they were, shouldn't be fighting. Remember, the Charlo brothers had that incident with Daniel Jacobs below Madison Square Garden last year, and they were calling him out. I haven't heard them mention Danny Jacobs' name since. It's a shame that Al Heyman has done to this sport what he did. And $120 million, who would give Al Heyman a nickel after what he did with $500 million? He pissed $500 million away. Okay, all those investors couldn't do anything about it. He pissed it away. He signed all the fighters. Half of those fighters haven't fought since. All the other fighters that got outrageous purses can't find a fight now. And the sport has sunk into what we see today. No, I blame what we see today on the PBC / Al Heyman and Floyd Mayweather. And the reason why I blanket Floyd Mayweather in is because he's a liar. He has promised us time and time again that he's going to give us a good quality fight, and he's never done it. This is a guy that has cherry-picked his opponents, says he's the best ever, and he's got a buku amount of fans that agree with him. He's worse than Sal Rocky Senacola about Deontay Wilder. Really? What do you think, Sal? Is he up there with you or what?
I'm gonna.
Yeah. Hey, I got a good one here from our man Mitch, man. All right, Mitch has this email. Yeah. Mitch has this email. He says, basically, his subject says a few questions and observations. So I think we're in trouble here. So get ready. Right? He says, hey guys. I'm watching HBO. Politically correct boxing keeps trying to force women's boxing down our throats. Check it. Now, you see, I love Heather Hardy. I'm like, if I was any younger, I'd be knocking on her door. But, I like her because she's good looking. No, but because she's good in the ring, people. That's why. I kind of enjoyed that fight, even though I've been negative on women's boxing of late. But he says... number one, he's got him numbered for us, Sal. Number one, They keep talking about how many more punches they throw in 2 minutes compared to men who fight 3 minutes. Still trying to force feed us, and then use comparisons that are basically comparing apples and bananas. I can't agree with Mitch more. I was saying the same thing earlier, Sal. Come on, how do you say, well, they only fight 2-minute rounds, so since they're fighting 2-minute rounds, they throw twice as many punches as a guy who fights 3-minute rounds. I say it's easy to figure it out. Just see how many punches a guy throws in 2 minutes. And let's be fair. Let's remove the feeling out minute that the female fighters don't do. So let's just count the punches that a male fighter has from the last 2 minutes of the round, from minute 2 and minute 3, and see where the numbers lie. What do you think?
I think that's a fair comparison and analogy. I think you're right, and I think it would be a good assessment to see. But again, what's the significance of it? I mean, female fighting is female fighting, and male fighting is male fighting, and I don't think we'll ever see a male fighting a female, and as we should not have to ever do that. But what I do see and what I do respect are the female fighters that do step in the ring and for their titles and for their vying for the top spot and doing what they do and showing us that they can handle themselves and fight and be excellent boxers and fighters and competitors. And, the male's the same thing. And that's just it. It's where boxing has grown, evolved, however you want to say it, But, again, why are we even comparing the two genders? We shouldn't have to. Each should be respected for each what it's about.
When I was a kid, you could say boys will be boys and girls will be girls. Not so much today, Sal, because boys sometimes become girls and girls become guys. I mean, it's a mixed up, crazy world we live in right now. But what makes it even worse is there was a guy in MMA who became a woman and was allowed to compete against the women. And this particular fighter looked basically like a weightlifting man with long hair, and he was fighting women and beating the crap out of them. And I don't think that's fair. You know, I mean, they may have had some work done to the plumbing, but their body is still a man's body. I mean, it is what it is. You know, so it's hard to say, to compare them. It is what it is. But all I know is the world, she's a-changing. Boys were boys when I was a kid, and girls were girls, and, well, it ain't that way now. But in any event, he said, did you see, Steve, what you talking about? Willis accidentally on purpose blow the foul call in the first round of the Andrade fight. This is the same Willis who missed a similar call in Triple G against Lemieux and Chocolatito against Rung Vuzal, the first fight. He says, which cost Roman the fight. All clear fouls that deserve disqualifications, especially in the case of Andrade, a warning or a point deduction in the case of Triple G, and a non-call knockdown in the case of Gonzalez. But guys like you and Sal rate this guy number one on your pound-for-pound referee list because you like the googly-eyed faces he makes. Come on, Billy C., call this guy out. Andre couldn't be suspended or at best deducted a couple of points. I can't stand Steve Willis. I think that he is making a mockery of refereeing. I don't even think he's a good referee, as my man Mitch points out here, that he misses calls because he's too busy trying to get on camera. I think commissions like New York State Athletic Commission make themselves look extremely foolish when they continue to give this guy the work when they have way more competent referees out there, like Ron Lipton. You know, I'm not just saying that because I know Ron. Charlie Fitch is a great referee. He did the Daniel Jacobs fight last night. And my man Harvey Dock is also great. He did the Heather Hardy fight. So I'm with you there on Mitch. You have any thoughts on that, Sal?
Yeah. The referees I loved back in when I fought, where's Larry Hazard and Frankie Cappuccino?
Right. I mean, you know what the big difference was? You know, now everybody's so afraid to get hurt. You know, you're not allowed to tackle quarterbacks in football anymore. You can't hit, but you can't punch people in boxing anymore. You can't really, check somebody in hockey anymore. I mean, why don't we just live in a bubble world? You know, nobody forces anybody to become a professional athlete. But all of the left wingers and everybody that wants to try to be politically correct all the time, they're ruining our lives as we know it. We've become a sissy country. It's evident when you look in this sport and you see all of the fighters from other countries that are willing to fight whoever they put in front of them. And we get big fat baby Miller eating at every single food establishment he can find, and he's getting a shot at a title. It just doesn't make sense. He says he's got a third, number 3. He says
number three.
He says, speaking of Demetrius, you used to mention how outfits like Banner and Star Boxing moves a talented guy in a certain way and work his record up to like 20-0, but they don't have the capital win a purse bid for that big fight. But they look to cash in when the big fight comes by getting a big split of the payday. For example, I think Banner and Star used to get 40% of Andre's purses while he got the remaining 60, or vice versa. It was vice versa, my man Mitch, because that was why I thought, how could that be legal? They each got 30%. They wanted 33% each, which would have been, come on, 66%. But they ended up getting 30% each, and Demetrius only got 40% of his purses, and that's before he had to pay all his other expenses. He says, let me ask you this. A year ago, he renews his contract. Why do you think he did that, knowing how much of a split they took? That was mind-boggling to me. When that announcement came that he re-signed with them, I said to myself, what the heck is he doing? I thought that was a stupid move. I can't understand why. The only thing I can think of is that he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. that someone, he doesn't have enough people around him that cared about him to tell him, don't do it, Demetrius. What's your thoughts, Sal?
I don't know. It's there could be things that we are not aware of what would influence or what would make him decide to resign.
Wait. Let me ask you this.
Go for it.
By re-signing with them, you're signing 60% of your purse. Now, I ask you again, would you have done this?
Well, I learned a long time ago, Bill, that 60% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
But if he would have changed promoters, he would have had to only give up 33% or 30%.
True.
And actually, that's management. Promoters shouldn't be taking that much.
No, well, no, and that's the whole thing. I mean, the standard contract was, you don't know what the promoters are getting from you or for you in a sense, other than the rights to promote and rights to raise the revenue to split and give you. And yeah, a standard contract was always 10% off the top to the trainer, 33 and the third to the manager. You're left holding the bag in taxes and expenses.
Right. and somehow the promoters. Let me tell you, somehow the promoters will all the money that they may have used to help promote a fighter, they end up charging the fighter for that. So they get that deducted out of their purse. And oh, by the way, they use it as a write-off on their taxes. So they end up getting to keep most of their money too. It's such a joke, but. That is what it is. That's been going on forever.
And that's the same thing with Heyman and the investors. Don't you think all those investors that gave him $500 million, it was a deduction or a write-off for them? Heyman made a living, and everybody else made a good fat cat living for a little while, and they won. But
except, you know who lost on that deal besides the investors? And the investors didn't invest in the boxing. What they did was they invested in funds that were given to their guy who was in with Al Heyman to make the investments for them. And he chose to make it into the Khan, which was Al Heyman. So there was no repercussions all those investors could do except pull their money from this guy, which they all did. That was all in the news 2 years ago. But how does the TV networks turn around and give Al Heyman more cash to spend because he's going to piss it away? And Al Heyman, the joke of it was so many people thought Al Heyman was being good for the boxers. Oh, he's getting them more money. He's getting them this. He's getting them that. Yeah, only a handful of them. And look what has happened since. Al Heyman was making money for Al Heyman. No, everyone forgets that he was making money. And I love it when people say, well, Al Heyman wrote the check. He's paying this guy. No, Al Heyman has never reached in his pocket for a nickel of his own money. Ever. He has never, ever reached into his pocket. He has spent other people's money. It's that simple. Anyway, he says number 4. So let me continue. Andre.
Is this a 10 count?
No, actually, this is number 3 again. He says, so let me continue at number 3. Andrade just renewed with Banner and Starr, but now he's with Dazman. It's unclear if he's with Matchroom Boxing or simply with Dazman via Starr Banner. I don't know. I thought that he did not. He is not with Banner and Starr anymore. He has bought himself out of the contract, and he signed with Matchroom. And Matchroom is got the deal with Dazman. So that's why he signed off and then got screwed out of his first fight and then fought for the first time last week. He says, do you think outfits like Starr and Banner have a goal to build a guy and then take a big buyout from Dazn via cash out, or is their goal to build up a guy and then loan him to a bigger promoter, allowing them to get their 60 or 40% of a bigger purse or a winning purse bid and still able to retain him under contract for future fights? No disrespect to Artie Puello and Joe DeGuardia, but I hope Andrade is exclusive to Hearn in Matchroom. He is. Andrade bought out his contract from Joe and Artie, but I think that outfits like Starr and Banner promotions their goal is to get a guy, build him up against bums locally, and then get that big fight. And if they have to cash out at that time or not, they do. Joe DeGuardia, I'm good friends with him. he is a guy that never really invests a ton of money, aside from local small shows. It is what it is. He makes out very well, and fighters that go with him will choose to sign with Joe DeGuardia or Artie Puello of Banner and do exactly that. Have someone that will put them in a position to get to that 20-0, 22-0, and then hope that other doors open. Chris Algieri is an example. He was fighting with Joe DeGuardia about his cut and for the Pacquiao fight. So, yeah, I think that those types of promoters do that, and they're an important part of the boxing game, Sal, because without promoters that build up potential opponents for the big stars, we have nothing. And that's the part of the sport that I totally don't understand. All of these moves are going towards that upper echelon of the fighters, but what about the club show fighter? What about the guy starting out under 10 fights? Those are the guys that are the backbones of the sport, because those are the guys that when you have a small club show, they're the ones selling tickets. They're the ones selling tickets. They're the ones building up a fan base. And as soon as they get to a point where a bigger fish sees them as a moneymaker, they get pulled from the little pond and they get thrown into the ocean. They might get protected a little bit near the octopus's garden, but the truth of the matter is that eventually they're going to be fed to somebody. What do you think?
Well, that has been the natural progression, as far as I can remember. And, I go back to the old days, and I keep referring, as we always do, but Lou Duva was a genius, and he had a pool of fighters, and I was one of them. And, amongst them also was a Scott Frank, a Bobby Ches, a Vinny Pazienza, a Rocky Lockridge. And, we sold our tickets. We started out in Ice World Totowa, and we would sell our fan base, and we would bring our fans in, and certainly the Ice World would fill up with our fan base, and it would grow and grow and grow until we were discovered by other promoters and things. And then we'd be fighting the headliners ourselves down in Atlantic City or the Garden or other things and rising to the occasion. But you're not going to see that anymore. You do see it. You do see it. But it has to be making a strategy and a plan. These little club fighters that could evolve, that can grow, and that could take the challenges as they take the baby steps into a more of a competitive role later on after they get their experience. Yeah, those are the baby steps that create the world champions, that evolve from the little club fight. And we have to see and put faith and put more significant value on those club fight shows, with the local promoters, with the little things happening and the baby steps. And that's how we're going to see tomorrow's stars happen.
Well, I mean, the club shows run it, man. I mean, I don't understand. And they're the hardest ones to deal with now.
Absolutely. And they're, it's not easy. And you have experience with it. I have experience with it. And it takes the continuity, the success, the stick-to-itness, and the evolution of taking one show and letting it sustain itself to a level that increases for the next show, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Yeah, it's, the funny thing is that, without that level of fights, the sport that can't exist. And some of these commissions that, are trying to be politically correct and look out for the safety of the fighters, et cetera, they end up closing the door on the possibility of a small promoter to be successful. It's a shame. But anyway, listen, boys and girls, I appreciate you joining us today. And what, Sal? I'm running out of time. Come on, man.
I just wanted to say, Billy, you don't understand. I get stopped every day now from...
By the cops? Well, get your car inspected, and they won't stop you anymore.
They don't do that down here. They don't inspect your car. Anyway, it was the first question I asked the DMV, and they said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, we got to get the cars. Where's the sticker?" No, we don't have stickers. Just keep it safe. Anyway, so I want to send a big hello and a big thank you again to Scott Rifen, WGIG Gig. Let me tell you something. We have a fan base down here, Billy, that's only growing and growing and growing. And I love the men and women that come up to me and talk about the show and that they've heard it, they love it, they look forward to it. So I just want to give a real big shout out to Scott Rifen all our friends at WGIG 1440, and thank them very much for the opportunity. And all of our fans down here in Southeast Georgia that listen to us. Thank you very much, folks. We really appreciate it.
You're thanking them. I say this. We're lucky we're giving you the show. We're lucky we're giving you the show. You know, tell Scott to put us on more. Maybe we'll be back more. But listen, boys and girls and children of all ages, we enjoyed you joining us today, and we look forward to join us next time. So make sure. Until next time, I'll leave you with this. I forgot my own line. Until next time, I'll leave you with this. Make sure you tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. That was actually the line. Ciao, baby.